Welcome back to Together We Can's monthly action items. My name is Rob Crane. I'm a personal injury attorney in Dallas, Texas, and along with my friend Pastor Richie Butler, we are co-founders of Together We Can. This month, January, as we always do, we want to recognize the incredible historical life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., appreciate and recognize his sacrifices and the amazing life that he led, a life that he gave to the war toward equality, which he did in a nonviolent way. And we want to also recognize the sacrifices that his family gave being with him in that journey and also losing him in that fight for equality. We're going to also include links to past January editions so that you can pull some of our more featured months on Dr. King and appreciate his life once again. This month, we are going to, for the first time, recognize the International Day of Commemoration in memory of victims of the Holocaust, which is on January 27th. And we have not touched on the Holocaust. It is one where I personally feel totally inept and not qualified to address. But we are going to listen to those who have dug in deep on an area which we have not discussed much in America. Documentarians Ken Burns, Lynn Novick are going to sit down with CNN's Jake Tapper in a 56-minute interview, as well as portions of Ken Burns' recent documentary on the U.S. and the Holocaust. And I believe this will be the first month where we just have one offering for the month. But it's one that I think is packed full of historical education, as well as Mr. Burns and Ms. Novick's perspective, and try to have a discussion about issues of anti-Semitism that existed in America during the time of the Holocaust, how that shaped decisions and policy in regards to Jewish refugees and the consequences of those decisions. And as they do so in a very open way, talk about the mistakes of the American people, but also making sure that we don't lose sight in these kinds of discussions of the positive. And that is what we discuss and sometimes struggle with at Together We Can, is how do we find that positive approach so that we bring more people into the conversations. And that is something that I want to make sure that we address from the outset, as we have done in our introductions that you see in the communication, the email to you, that we need to remain incredibly proud and grateful for all of the sacrifices of the brave men and women who helped defeat the evil of Nazism, defeat Hitler, and all of the awful atrocities that were occurring there during that time. And so we must put that on a pedestal. But at the same time, we also must include in those discussions awareness of what were we doing and what were we not doing during that time, which we might be able to do better in the future with. And that's going to be important. Our history in this world is one of genocides that have occurred throughout the centuries, and we are not somehow immune from that occurring in the future. And it starts with the little things. It starts with the marginalization of people because of differences and the silence to that marginalization, which then just starts a snowball effect. And what we can learn from this time and learn from previous genocides is we can learn how that starts. We can learn how that marginalization, where dictators, totalitarian regimes, where they attempt to get that foothold and allow their power to marginalize people, and what we can do when we see those things beginning to happen. Those are the lessons to be learned. Those are the things that we can do to honor those great Americans of that greatest generation who sacrificed so much. And and make sure that we prevent this from happening again so others don't have to make those same sacrifices. I also want to raise the discussion of the interview itself. Jake Tapper is an incredibly talented journalist, incredibly successful journalist. He is obviously a CNN journalist, and we are very transparent here. There are perspective news channels on our televisions. CNN generally caters to a perspective, whether they would agree with me or not. Fox News does the same. MSNBC does the same. And so let's just be honest about that. There are a couple of times in this interview where Mr. Tapper, he raises up Fox News at a moment, and he also brings up a concept of canceling. And listen to the response of his interviewees when he does so, and in particular when he brought up the term of cancel culture and canceling. And how these historians say, well, that's not what we do. We don't cancel with history. We learn from history. And I'm not here to criticize Mr. Tapper. I'm here to raise the discussion of when we bring up these topics, how can we best do so? How can we bring up these kind of conversations, lead these conversations in positive ways, and where we're talking about history where we're looking at it in the eye, as we have learned from historian John Meacham in previous editions of Together We Can. We look it in the eye, we don't judge it. So I hope that these topics for you to review, discuss, think about, learn from, I hope they are meaningful to you. This topic is one of atrocities, and it is so hard to wrap your head around humanity. And how humanity could allow this to occur, and 2/3 of the Jewish people in Europe were lost to murder. It is just so hard for me to wrap my head around. And from that, we want to be respectful and pay homage and do those things where we are not silent in the future and not allow these kinds of things to happen again. So hope it's meaningful to you, and we look forward to seeing you back next month.